Good evening. My name is Malcolm Clemens Young. I'm the Dean of Grace Cathedral here in San Francisco, California. Welcome to the Forum Online. My guest tonight is Abby McEnany. She's a writer, comedian, actor, and Chicago Improv mainstay, and also the co-creator, writer, executive producer, and star of the Showtime television series Work in Progress, a semi-autobiographical comedy drama about a self-identified fat queer dyke entering into a transformative relationship during a time of crisis. Much of the story of Work in Progress, which ran for 2 seasons, 2019 and 2021, is about Abby, the character, finding opportunities to live when she has just about given up hope. Every year, the Cathedral chooses a theme for inspiration and reflection, and in 2022, our theme is connection. Tonight, we'll be talking about what it's like to be one of the few people like her in film and television, and how her work deepens our connections to each other. Abby, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Hey, Malcolm. Thank you so much for asking. I'm really thrilled to be here. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Oh, what a gift it is that we can do this. For those who are in the audience who may not have seen the show, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the premise of it and just how do you describe it to people who you meet and who may not know about it already?
Let's see. So, and also I called my sister Lizzie right before this. I'm like, I'm so nervous. I'm out of practice. I haven't done something like this for a while. So apologies. So the show is it's a comedy, but it's based in real life. And it's a show about a character named Abby McEnany, should have changed the name. Oops. Who is on has been just really struggling for a really long time. And it's, as somebody who lives with depression, it can be really overwhelming, as we know, but it's also like feeling like a burden and like not feeling like you're not getting better. It can just be overwhelming. So in the first episode or first scene of the first episode, she makes a statement to her therapist that if things don't get better in 180 days, she is going to kill herself. And then she goes to have lunch with her sister, and then she meets a young trans man and they start dating. And so it's like, she's still counting down the days, but it's like trying to find, like, how do you survive in this world? How do you make connections? How do you find forgiveness for yourself? Like how somebody who is like struggling with mental illness and self-loathing about their size and like just struggling, like how do you get through the day? And I swear it's a comedy. I swear.
No, it's funny because as you're talking, I'm just saying it is so funny.
Thank you.
I love your show. It's just,
wow.
I think it's so powerful. And I was thinking, you're so sweet to like kind of give us that kind of little synopsis. But in that episode that you're describing, you're going, Abby, the character, is going on describing just, how, what her plans are and how, this is going to be a time of testing, and this is the moment when she's going to make a existential decision.
Right.
And then as you're going on and on, or Abby's going on and on, Abby looks up and the therapist is dead.
Yeah. Therapist dies.
The therapist dies. And it's funny, as I saw that, I kept thinking about that as being an example of one thing I've never seen in film or on television before. And it's totally in my brain now. I mean, every time I see a therapist on television, I'm worried that that's going to happen to them. But, so that's a kind of first that happened in that film or in that show. But I wonder what other firsts were there, because people must certainly be saying to you, they're the first time I saw such and such. And what do they say when they say this show is the first time they saw X on TV?
That's really a good question. I have to say, I will never, because I haven't seen all TV, right? I'm never going to sit here and be like, we were the first.
Yeah.
I just don't want to, I don't want to make that statement because I haven't seen everything.
Like that,
I mean, I think, and again, I've never been on social media, and we could spend a whole hour talking about how garbage it is. And what a detriment it is. But we don't need to do that, Malcolm. We're moving on. So I actually, and because of the pandemic and it came out, I haven't actually met a ton of people. I haven't really been out, right?
Right.
But the connections I have made, the people that I have met, I get, it's like, and I've gotten some messages and stuff, is that it's the first time they've seen somebody like themselves represented on screen. And I think what was in my brain revolutionary, and again, I'm not sure we're the first one, but the main character is a heavy gray-haired, masculine presenting queer woman who is the lead of a show and has a romantic relationship with a very, very attractive younger person. And I think that's kind of like having a fat woman lead a show anyways, right? That's kind of bonkers. And then to have them be like masculine and gray haired and don't wear makeup and however, I think that's kind of a first.
Yeah, but there's something about the way it's filmed that makes us just love you or your character, like right from the beginning. Do you know what I mean? Because I do think there's a way in which I can imagine someone saying, I've never seen somebody like me on TV before you, but I can also see somebody being completely different from you. You know, and still feeling that too. I mean, even just like that scene in that first show where, you know, you're going kind of like through the fraternity party kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like, oh my gosh. I mean, I just like, who hasn't, you know, kind of walked in the door.
Oh yeah.
Just felt immediately like everybody around, you feel uncomfortable. And then having the people there kind of reinforce that feeling of not belonging. That was just so well done. You know?
Oh, thank you so much. And I think also when I say like not seeing themselves represented, I think also with our characters that surround Abby in the show, we have a lot of trans characters and non-binary characters and queer characters of all different ages and sizes and stuff. And I think, and they're not treated as like, you know, not treated as other. It's like that's sort of
and their identity isn't wrapped up just in that one element of their personality.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think also, I think so. And I think that's really, I think you know, it's like Abby like is the center of the show, but she certainly messes up all the time. And I think the show really is about like, how do you live with that? Like, as you know, how do you get through day by day as somebody who fails a lot and wants to do better? And I think the second season, I really, you know, we do a lot of that, like, how do you live in this world that is crumbling and with somebody with so much privilege and how do you reckon with that?
You know, one of my favorite parts of it is just like I mean, I think it's like my children are like they're so attuned to just kind of like non-binary trans issues. You know, they understand the language and the philosophy. I learn from them constantly. And I love when you like kind of make mistakes about how you, and it's not like you erased those or edited them out.
Yeah.
You know, it's part of the story that, you know, if you didn't grow up in this setting, you're gonna be kind of guilty of insensitivity, you know, through our linguistic mistakes and through others.
Sure.
And I kind of like that too. It's just like that. It kind of gives people permission to, like you said, fail. I mean, to like, you know, say the wrong thing. Last night at yoga, there was this lady who's there, and she's a close friend of mine. And I turned around and said, "Oh, so and so," and I totally mistook them for someone else. You know, so it was of the same ethnic background, except for the difference was I mistook them for somebody who's like 30 years older than them. But you know, I mean, it's just like we make mistakes like that all especially around issues, I think, about gender and sexuality and identity.
I think so. Yeah. I think as somebody who always is like, and Abby the person, as somebody who's always like worried about messing up and like being called out and stuff, I want it like, and a lot of the reasons I think, you know, nowadays you make a mistake and you do it on social media and you're villainized there's no room to grow and there's no reason, there's no grace. And there's not a lot of giving of grace and giving time to learn, you know. Certainly a lot of people, when I hear about stuff, I'm like as angry as anybody else, but like, I don't know. The show is really, and something I try to ascribe to, and I don't succeed often. I'm sure my sisters are like, "Oh girl, you don't succeed at all in this." But anyways, hi Lee, hi Lizzie. Is, you know, like make a mistake, own it, take accountability, do your work, try to do better. It's nobody else's responsibility. And I think in this new world in the last several years of people just, you know, you're just turned into a villain overnight and there's no room for growth. And I think that's permeated our whole society. Like,
you know, and what part of what you're totally right about that. And things feel so permanent. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, Yeah, it's hard to deal with, but I love the way you just kind of, like you said, you move with grace from the one thing to the next thing, and I think it gives everybody permission not to be perfect all the time, and to be,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be the end of the world if it's just this horribly embarrassing thing
Right. And it
happens.
feels like it.
Yeah.
It certainly feels like the end of the
It does.
world.
Oh my gosh, you should have heard me last night. I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm mortified. I was like, I
Yep.
think I dreamed about it even.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
It was
Yeah.
terrible.
And I mean, I seriously, I do that stuff all the time. And I still struggle. Like, how do you say like, look, I'm really sorry. It would, and like, and then, I just go back to like my upbringing and my privilege and like how, I was like, oh gosh, how can I, I don't know, man. Yeah, I spiral a lot. I know I hide it, Malcolm.
How did you get the idea for the show? Like, how did this come to you? Like, did it begin with something smaller and then kind of grow to something bigger? Or?
Yeah, it did. I live in Chicago and I've been improvising. Like I started taking classes, I think like a year out of college at 25. Took me 6 years, humble brag, boo. Anyways, everybody's on their own journey, Malcolm.
Everybody's on their own journey.
Yeah. So I think
that's how long it takes to get ordained. You got ordained into the Church of Improv.
Yeah, the church
just
of
the right
like,
amount of time.
Struggling.
Yeah.
But nobody would listen to my preaching.
Well, hey, that's the same thing with me.
So I started taking classes like 24, 25 and like was just improvising a lot. That was like, and I just and been performing a long time, doing some sketch and acting and a little bit of writing and stuff. And then I toured with the Second City. I started that when I was 40, which was like, I was touring with people in their like early 20s and stuff. And again, everybody's on their own path. And that's when I was supposed to get it. And that's when I was ready for it on a lot of levels, brain. And then also where I was in like where I was in my like in improvising and sketch and stuff. Anyways, I did a one person show that was all sketch and some like stories and stuff. Then I did a storytelling show in 2016, and I had been asked to do a storytelling. I tell a story in the storytelling event, and I'd never done it before. And I was like, yeah. I had one of my directors, Second City, Pat O'Brien, once said like, if something scares you, you should do it. And that old Eleanor Roosevelt quote, right? Like every day you should do something that terrifies you. That is not exactly the quote. So keep the comments. Okay. Just 2 bits. Anyways, so I was like, yeah, do it. And I just tried to push myself, because I don't know what, I mean, I was like doing a few shows a week and like hardly getting any gigs and stuff. So then I really liked the storytelling art. And then I was doing that more. And then I did one whole storytelling show of just my stories. And it was called Work in Progress. And then a friend of mine, Tim Mason, who I'd known for years and years and years, we were going to work on something. He was going to direct it. I was going to write it like little videos. And he came. And then we were like, he was like, let's make a show about this. And I'd always wanted to do something. I'd always wanted to do a television show. I always want to work with somebody. I'm not one of those people that gets up at 6:30 is like, it has a show written by like, dinner time. Not going to happen. So I really like the collaborative process. I like how you don't get stuck in your demons. Like you can actually like move through like, the negative talk. I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm really good at that negative talk, Malcolm.
I'm too. I get that.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's how that happened. That was a really long answer.
Terrible.
You what?
Your sermon's terrible. Your sermon's terrible. If anybody hears you preach this morning, they're never going to come back.
Oh my Lord, we got a lot in common, my friend. Yeah. So it started from the storytelling thing, and then he was like, "Let's do it." I was like, "Yeah," because there's so much talent here in Chicago and so many lovely folks here that, and like, it was just hard to ask somebody to take so much of their time and energy to do a show about me. And he came to me, he's like, "Do you want to do this?" I'm like, "I do indeed." And then we just worked on it and took a while. And then we got into Sundance and then we sold it to Showtime. I mean, it was just a really, really bonkers experience. So it was really great. It was really wonderful.
Was a great creation for sure. Hey, do you know today is National Storytelling Day? That's what the radio said to me. I wasn't
Which station?
listening. KDFC.
Okay. Okay. I'm not in San Francisco.
Of course, you have no idea what it is. It's a classical music station.
Oh, okay. I was like, is it NPR or one of the like FMT or something?
But it's like USC.
It's like K-Rock.
It's like on the borderline between being able to make it and being publicly funded. But yeah, so if it is National Storytelling Day, can you tell us a story?
Oh boy, I thought I was. Oh, like about what?
Or you could just keep going on.
I don't know. Oh man, yeah. Like we're not going to throw you for any loops. I mean, what do you want to know about?
I'll tell you a story I'd love to hear about.
Okay.
I would love to hear a story about your parents and what it was like growing up in your household.
Whoa. Okay. I'm not sure. My dad said he might be watching. I signed him up for it last night, so I'm not sure. Hey, Papa. Let's see. My family. This is gonna be a story. It's just gonna be kind of answer. So I'm the youngest of three girls, and my mom and dad, we moved around a lot, and it was for my dad's job. He was a cardiovascular surgeon. And my mom I think it was like 17 or 18 households throughout from when they got married until I graduated from high school. Yeah. And so and we went they went around the country. We lived in England for a year when I was 2. It was, I will say, I know I told you I go off topic a lot. I would say my family was filled with, my mom was like a feminist. She was like, girls can do anything. We were never told that, that things weren't available to us. Education was really important to my family. They were also very supportive. One thing I remember is like I would get home and I didn't do well on a test, and my mom would be like, "How'd you do?" I'm like, "I got a C." And she'd go, "Do you know what you did wrong?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." She's like, "Great." And I was like, "Whoa." I mean, sort of that, like, yeah. There was, I think, my high school experience, like from, I don't know, 8th to 9th grade, like, and like all through high school, I had a very tumultuous relationship with my parents. However, I always knew they loved me. And I think I remember going away for the summer, and I remember not wanting to talk to my mom, but or my dad, but I missed their hugs. I don't know. So like, yeah. I knew I was loved. I was, yeah, I don't know. That's not a really, yeah, I don't know.
How about this? Tell me about one interesting.
Was that a failure?
No, it's total winner. Totally. I mean, everybody needs to be reminded of just like how powerful hugs are.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I just feel
like
really
you're doing a public service. We should put that on a public service announcement. I'll buy a 30-second ad. We'll put it everywhere. It would be great.
Yeah. And I think also I have to say, when I went away to college, and my roommate my first year, and then seeing like the families of some of the kids in my dorm, I was like, holy crap, my family rules. Yeah. Like as many issues as we had, that was sort of like, that was like kind of, yeah. You are so lucky, Abby. Be aware of how lucky and blessed you are to have your family. And like my sister and I laugh, like even as much as like we get into stuff, it's like we are all aware that we're really lucky to have each other.
Yeah, it's really true. So interesting place that you worked, and why?
Ooh, holy smokes. See, there's not tons. Well, I worked at, I mean, I would say like, this isn't real. I mean, I worked at when I finally got Second City Touring Company, which was a job, it wasn't
That's an interesting job.
I mean, it was really cool. And I think what was so great about it is that I got it at 40. And there is something about getting some modicum of success later in life.
I agree.
You really, I mean, I think it's, I really valued it. I don't know. There were some people that like was just very much a stepping stone. I remember in our first rehearsal, Pat was like he was really great when new people joined. Like if somebody had left and a new person came, it was the whole first rehearsal was all like, exercising and getting to know each other and stuff. And we all kind of knew each other, but this was just whatever. And he was like, so everybody talked about what their dream job is. And then I was the last to go. And I was like, this is my dream job. I've been auditioning it for 10 years. Like over a period of 10 years, I've been trying to get this job. And people are like, I'll go to SNL. I want to write for late night. I want to be, and I was like, oh, I want to tour the Second City And then I toured for 3.5 years, which was a really long time. And I was like, I'm sorry, it took me a long time to get here. I'm learning a lot. I saw so much of the country. I'd never been to the South before. One of my now very best friends, Joey Bland, I got to know him very well on Torco, and he was from Virginia. He's one of the smartest people I know. And we went to big cities and small towns and saw the country. It was really eye-opening. And there's something about like whether or not there's fractions within your Torco at a certain time. When you go into a small town diner and you've got a Black guy and a Jewish guy and a big fat dyke, and there's something about like, okay, as much as we are not happy with each other in the van, we are here. We've got each other's backs because we are connected. I don't know. There was something really beautiful about that. As fractious as it was at certain times, you'd go into like, you'd stop at, one of those travel centers, like in the middle of the highway.
Yes, completely.
And that you'd be okay. There's something really beautiful about that. And now, like when I travel, I'm like, can somebody come to the bathroom with me? And I still do that a bunch, but I don't know. So it was wonderful. And then I learned a lot, and it was wonderful. And there was something I learned a lot about. There's so much you can't control, and that was like kind of the first time. And I'm not very great at it, but that sometimes things are out of your control. There's nothing you can do about it. And like kind of learning or starting to learn, hi Lizzie, that there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just love that too. There is a sense of like when you're working on a common project with with people, I love that teamwork. I mean, because there's a way in which there's so much that I used to do that was just totally by myself. I mean, writing a book or writing a journal article or writing a sermon. But I really love like a project that involves other people.
Yeah.
It's really, so how did you first get into stand-up? Like, how did that happen? I mean, you graduate from college and then you're just like, hey, I want to learn more about this.
Yeah. So I never actually, I did improv and storytelling. So not stand-up, but I did take a stand-up class, like when I was like in my mid 40s, and boy, that's a different beast. And it's I very much respect it. It's not something I really enjoy for myself, but I always just wanted to comedy was always very important. I just loved it. That's silly. But I think that like my dad and I, like my dad is hilarious. And I think we have a lot in common. Like we just have a common sense of humor. And I just love Steve Martin and Gilda Radner and Saturday Night Live. And I don't know. So comedy was just something I always wanted to do. And when I went to college, there was an improv team, group there, and people are like, are you gonna audition? I'm like, but I've never improvised. I don't know how to. And I'm not somebody who just like jumps in and learns on the fly. I definitely need classes and whatever. So I finally, like a year after graduating, I got the guts to take a class. It was like, even just like, I'm scared. You want to do it, take the class. So that's how I started doing it. I just took a class and took a lot of classes.
Yeah, so what did you learn? Like, what are the things that you learn when you first start? Like, what surprised you as you first kind of opened the door and entered into this world?
That's really good. I think, I honestly, it was so long ago, and I actually never taught improv or coached or directed because my brain's not really set up that way, and it makes me really anxious, and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. So how could I teach it? Can I tell you what I love about improv now?
Yeah, completely. Okay. What a great place to start.
No, Abby, no, you can't. What I love about it is, and it's weird that I love it because I'm a very anxious person, but I love that it is just like, and I find trusting people fairly difficult, but improv is 1,000% about trust and giving it a try and doing the best you can with the people on stage with you. And then you leave and sometimes it is so bad. Like sometimes it's like so bad. And then sometimes it's one of the most beautiful things. And I don't know. And I've been improvising for so long. Actually, like the theater that I used to perform at IO was closed during the pandemic. I haven't improvised in several I improvised once this past summer. Boy, oh boy, it's just something for me that I need to keep doing. It was bad. So I very much miss it. But what I loved about it is that I was on some teams with people that I just absolutely enjoy and love and trust. And you'd go out there and I had a ball. I don't know, man. And there were times, that like my depression was really bad. I didn't talk to anybody all day. It was like the only reason I got out of bed that day. And I went down to the theater and I got to be with these people that I loved and trusted and be on stage and laugh and work, try to create something.
Yeah.
And then some of my favorite times were being on the sides and watching my teammates create these goofy and hilarious, wonderful scenes. I don't know. It's just this creativity of like tightrope walking. And yeah, I don't know.
That's so interesting. We can't do church well. Like we forgot how to do Good Friday. We haven't done Good Friday for 3 years. We totally forgot. So the Bishop and I are up there going, aren't we supposed to be washing their feet now? Or, on Maundy Thursday, that's what but we forgot how to do like those basic things.
Absolutely.
So I can totally imagine improv, you're kind of forgetting that too.
Yeah. And it's funny. I think that we're all kind of struggling that, right? Getting back to what the normal was, or like work was. Like, I remember like worrying, I'm so thankful that we got to record, like we actually got to film a season.
And that's what I was thinking, because so season 1 is in non-COVID, season 2 you recorded in COVID.
Yeah, and we started writing it into 2020. Wow. And we were week 5 of our 6-week writers room, and then we started no COVID.
Yeah,
we went our last week, our 6th week of writing was virtual, and then we had 4 different start dates, and it was just a really I don't know, but COVID was very difficult. But man, when you think you have OCD, you think germs are gonna kill you. It's not really.
Just to make things worse.
And the thing is, like, I have to say, this is again, like, I think might rub people like, we get it, but like, I have to say, it was a very hard time. I was safe. I had healthcare. I got to see my therapist twice a week I got to still see him. I got my meds. My family was safe. So like, as hard as it was, I'm still so fortunate. I just want to be very clear about that. Yeah.
When I'm watching the show, I just can't help it. But I imagine you as a child. Like what that was like growing up. And I don't know if other people have that same impression, but there's certain people in my life who I see them and I can imagine them like as a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old.
Right.
But I wonder if you could talk just a little bit about what you learned from childhood that kind of helped you in this project.
Oh boy. Oh, those are such good questions. At 9 p.m. Central, I'll be like, oh, that's what I should
Sorry about that. It's a drag, the time change.
No, not at all. I'm just saying, like, when this is over, I think I'm going to come up with a good answer for that question. What did I learn? Oh boy. Can we come back to that?
Yeah, well, maybe you can just talk about just kind of like gayness even. Do you know what I mean? It's just like,
sure, yeah.
Like,
go ahead.
Yeah, how that kind of unfolded for you.
Yeah. I think I think queerness is just really, I find it really beautiful and fascinating and constantly evolving. And I think like in the first season, we really we show like Abby's friends are white and cis. Yeah. And like full on lesbo, right? Lesbian, like not like, fluid or not whatever, just very homogenous. Yeah. And that certainly was my coming out experience. And when I went through with my real life relationship with my ex Alex, who was 20 years younger, like my world kind of opened. Just this whole thing of transness, of like non-binary, genderqueer, and then just in the last several years of fluidity and stuff like that. So I always felt like, it's funny because I first came out, I was laughing, I first came out as bisexual when I was 24 to my parents. And I'm pretty sure it was my mom who said, well, I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, it wasn't like, this is like a shock.
Julia Child.
Yeah. Oh my God, I know. Sometimes when I would do my mom, people is that Julia Child? I'm like, no, it's my mother. Not close, right?
I used to live in the same neighborhood as Julia Child.
Yeah, absolutely. Who she loved. She loved Julia Child. So like,
Yeah.
we have mom. And I remember my dad, they came to town and we went to a show, like a Second City show that the mainstay show. And I was a student at the time. And I said something like, well, I'm bi. My dad's like, you're a lesbian. And then I was like, okay, because they had no issues with it. And I think a lot of that is we moved around a lot, but we landed in San Francisco for high school. So, and my dad was a surgeon, and we lived in this amazing city of queer rights and visibility and openness, right? So I was very lucky in that. And then yeah, and I think that I always I just didn't honestly, the word fluid, which has just come to that I've just learned in the last probably 5-6 years, I'm not even sure that's the first time it really makes sense. And there's just more ways to describe yourself, right? And I know some people would call it pansexuality. I just call it fluid. I don't know. It's kind of ever evolving. But I feel very my whole family was I was never afraid. I have friends, I remember I felt so bad. A good friend of mine, I was the first person she came out to. And I was like, yeah, yeah, your parents, it's going to be great. And it wasn't great. And I was like, wow, Abby, open your mind, man. You, again, another thing. I'm so fortunate and lucky about that. My parents and my whole family were just okay. It was just sort of, my dad would call it a non-event. And then when I dated, when I started dating my trans boyfriend, that was a non-event. I think my dad didn't really understand stuff, but it wasn't it was sort of oh, I don't get it.
Not that you're going to be cast out, but we're trying to figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was and he just was okay, and yeah, it was just wild. I just think, and I just, again, it just goes back to I'm just a really, really lucky person,
Yeah. Well, you do so much in terms of just sharing that joy too, even though the show has such dark topics, that's why it's just so hard to describe. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's funny because it's the first scene is the characters planning to kill herself if things don't get better, and it's a comedy. And I think it was just really important, because it's really suicide ideation, and depression and mental illness is a huge part of my life, right? And has been at different times, and so it was always done. I think it was done with honesty and love, and the way that I've survived is through laughter and comedy, right? And so I just felt and it's not for everybody, but I think that it wasn't oh, we're going to pick this topic and make fun of nothing was being made fun of. It's really, I survived through comedy. And
part of it, it's I think it's hard for some people to imagine just such powerful and tragic topics, and yet being able to address them in a way that's funny,
right,
and that's humane, and that, you said, it's not about poking fun at somebody. It's about just highlighting these terrible things that we all experience. But
right,
there is a kind of something funny about that.
Yeah. And I don't know, when my mom got sick with cancer, we thought she was going to survive about 6 months, and she ended up surviving 3.5 years. And the first 6 months and the last 6 months were really rough. And the in-between time was all this, we had so much time with her. And there was for me, there was a lot of healing, and with my dad as well. I just feel, and there's so much dark humor about, I don't know, some of the funniest stuff happened during those 3.5 years. And we crack up about it all the time. I mean, it's just really,
yeah.
I mean, it's just, that's how we get by, right? And to be able to have that, and it was a gift for sure. I don't know. Yeah.
I think 45,000 people take their own lives every year. I mean, and the number is increasing. I don't know if you have any sense for why that is, or just any insight on that. I mean, I think one of the things you mentioned before is, I think you're right. I think our online lives, they are a contributing factor for sure. But I just wonder what your thoughts are on that. Something I struggle with so much, because I'm so often called into moments. They're such intense moments, like after something like this has happened, tragic moments, and I don't know. I'm always looking for a way to just understand it better.
I mean, I couldn't imagine that I would have any. I mean, I certainly don't know. I have thoughts about it. I really think social media has a huge part in it. And the lack of and I remember somebody years ago was like, Abby, you should get on Twitter because it'll help your career. And I was like, if I get on Twitter, I won't be around to have a career. Yeah. Like, I just wouldn't survive it. And I have to say, the thing about like social media, I think when I talk about it with the folks, I think I'm not better than it. Like when I'm if I had it, I wouldn't, it's like, it's addicting. Like you want to see what's going on. There's no way that nobody's living their real life online. Yeah. Like that, everybody's like, oh, they look like they're having so much fun. And like, I've had like somebody put a picture of me, like this is years ago. I was out with my friend Nancy. I ran into my friend Mark. He was a friend for Second City. We were wearing like the same sweatshirt and the same like kind of beanie. And a masculine looking. So we looked alike. So somebody took our picture and posted it. And somebody's like, so did you have fun with Mark when you were out? I was like, I wasn't out with Mark. Like, there's just so much
it's like reality television's not real at all.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't watch reality TV. I don't know. I just think that there's like that nothing, I think especially kids, like I can't, I'm so thankful that I wasn't growing up with social media. Like I don't know how. Oof. Oh man, I'm not saying anything with any cogency here, but I think that the idea that you're not good enough, that you're not pretty enough, that you're smart enough, that you're not popular, that you're not in the right things, that like you're not living your life the right way, that you're never gonna like achieve what these people seemingly have and what they don't have. Like, that's not really cogent, but I will say, like my friend Brendan, like, and again, I'm not better than it. I just never got on because I knew that it would just be, I can make good boundaries for myself sometimes, Malcolm. That was a very good boundary that I set for myself early on. And, but like my friend Brendan would like, sometimes he would like, he'd take a picture and he'd put it on Instagram. He's like, ooh, this is going to be a 63 liker. And then for the night, I'd be like, what are we up to? And I couldn't get through the day until I was like, what are we up to? He's like 59. I'm like, oh God, we're going to be stuck at 59. It meant nothing. The number meant nothing. But to me, I was like, oh, we have to hit that number. Like it's insidious.
Yeah, it is.
And I struggle enough with all those negative thoughts on my own. I don't need all those other helps. Come on, man.
Like what your experience was like with just a television, like in terms of just what you watched or how it influenced you, or, what role has television played in your life?
Oh, I think, that's really, I think honestly, I never saw somebody that looked like me.
Yeah, right.
That wasn't like, and I never saw, especially, and I was born in 68. So like, the TV that I watched as a kid was like, 70s and 80s.
Right, exactly.
I never saw a fat woman that was not like laughed at or like, or seen as somebody worthy of love or romantic intent. I never saw like just a fat or queer character that was like, treated
empathetic character.
Empathetic or like not the punchline, and there are a lot, and certainly like honestly there's been leaps and bounds of progress made, right? Like I just think Origins is the New Black, which it was not actually, funnily enough, not a show I really loved, but I loved the representation on it. Like I was like, wow, you see tons of different women on there. You see trans women, you see fat women, you see old women, you see like all these different races and sizes and ability. I don't know. I just thought that was like, whoa, that to me was groundbreaking. And just like seeing, but the two leads were like the two cis white.
Yeah.
women that were conventionally pretty.
To people just like how bad television was, just like, I mean, just how damaging it was.
It really, yeah. And also, I totally fall for those tropes. Like, I love a rom-com.
Yeah.
Like, I'm, you know, and like, you don't like, sometimes I still don't realize when I'm watching something like, oh, right. This is the story that's being perpetrated. And it's really easy to lose it. Right. And I think that could be said against all sort of media, right? Like, I don't know.
You know, one of the people on your character is Julia Sweeney, is a character on your show. And I want to talk about just like including her and just like kind of what your take was just on Pat as time has gone by, you know?
Yeah. Well, so one of the stories of my storytelling show was how like Julia Sweeney ruined my life because like.
So she's the actress who plays Pat on Saturday Night Live.
Right. Yeah. So Pat was a character back in the day when Julia Sweeney was on SNL. And the thing is, and I have to say, like when Pat came out, I love Pat. I'm like, I hope Pat is on this week and stuff. And I think this is also an example of something that like had a place and then like times change and people's ideas change. And that doesn't make the person that created the thing evil. Like the stuff that, I mean, God, if stuff that I said 10 years ago about like, hopefully we're always learning and evolving, right? And if we're not, why are we even here? Like we got to keep on growing. So I love Pat when it came out. I started hating Pat was when I was starting to really like come out and feeling myself and, you know, wearing those overalls and just being like, I was called Pat. And it's never a compliment and it's always an insult. And it can be like it was very hurtful. And it was also not, we show it at that fratish party. It wasn't like that house party with all those frat guys, which really happened. It was a bunch of Notre Dame dudes. Because my girlfriend at the time had gone to St. Mary's. And so it was all like St. Mary's and Notre Dame dudes. But it also, I was called Pat at a lesbian bar by a lesbian.
Yeah.
So it's like, whoa, like there's so much judgment against, you know, across. So, you know, just because I was defining myself as a lesbian at the time didn't mean I felt safe in lesbian spaces. It's like, what? Like, I can't even, you know, just because of the way that I presented myself, you know.
Yeah,
that's hard to get out of bed for that, Malcolm.
But you know, I mean, I think all of us have had this experience of just not as in such a pointed way, but
sure.
Yeah, it was a really, I thought that was a really helpful thing for everybody. I mean, it's just all of us to, I mean, it's like, again, it gets back to like, I mean, is your definition of it when you decide to have comedy, is it going to be a comedy that's at the expense of other people, or is it going to be comedy that kind of like unites us and helps us to, I don't know, see more deeply into who we are, you know?
Right. And I think like, honestly, when Pat came out at the time, like it was great, you know, I don't think it wasn't because I loved it, you know, and I think, and Julia and I first of all, I love Julia and we talk about it on screen and off screen and we're not in the same place but that's okay. And that's, I think, an example of like, not everybody in your life is going to feel the same way about everything. And God bless, it'd be very boring if they did. And it's okay. Like, you know, people can still be lovely human beings that have different opinions, you know, and different experiences. And what I loved so much about that experience with Julia, who's been so kind from the beginning, is still so kind and generous to me and to the show, was that she never was like precious about, she never asked us to like change. She wasn't like, oh no, I don't want to be portrayed like that. Right. And that takes a lot like that, you know, it wasn't like she wanted to like, you know, sanitize the experience, even though we have different thoughts about it.
Yeah, I love that. You're so right. Because I can imagine just wanting to edit everything. Like you don't. Yeah, and I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to wear this. Yeah. I can imagine just like interfering instead of just kind of like accepting. You know,
right
how other people. Take it.
Sorry. What was that?
Yeah. How other people take it. How other
exactly
people
right.
So that your experience of it isn't necessarily the only one, you know?
Right, exactly right. And I think that there have been some people like, oh, I hate Julia Sweeney because like Pat. And I was like, and even when I said, you know, in that joke, like in that storytelling thing that I say, like Julia Sweeney ruined my life. She didn't ruin my life.
Yeah,
like
right.
that's a storytelling thing, right?
That's a hyperbole, you know.
Right. For National Storytelling Day, Malcolm.
National
How about that, a little hyperbole?
Hyperbole. Hey, so one of our traditions on the show is we take questions.
Oh, okay.
Viewers.
Okay.
And the first one of our viewers has asked the following question, and that is, did growing up in the Episcopal Church have an impact on you? You can say no. Don't.
No, it certainly did. No, honestly, I'm so thankful about growing up in the Episcopalian Church, and I don't consider myself
Episcopalian
anymore. But like, honestly, like, because I don't know, I don't consider myself, I don't know what I consider myself, but I loved, and what I loved about it, and I have to say, like, my mom grew up Episcopalian, my dad grew up Catholic, and he was like, I'm out of here, converted to Episcopalianism. And again, since we moved around a lot, we went to a lot of different churches. And what I loved about my experience in the Episcopalian Church was this sense of openness and accepting that was, to me. And again, I knew so little about the Catholic Church at the time. And some of my best friends grew up Catholic, everybody.
That's great. I love it.
But was this sort of a sense of accepting. And my mom was she was a senior warden at Grace Episcopal Church in West Newton, or in Newton, Lee and Lizzie told me, Mass, when we lived there in the 70s. And we were very involved in the church and choir and like youth groups and all that stuff. Blah, 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 blah. And we just moved around. And then when we moved to San Francisco, I'll tell you, we moved, my family, my sister, Lee was in college, Lizzie was away at school. So I was the only kid that moved to San Francisco. I was freshman, and we went kind of church shopping. Like, we would go to all these different churches. And then we ended up at St. Aidan's.
I love St. Aidan's.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It was, all those beautiful banners and just like small and
yeah.
And we moved there in 1982, right? Yeah. So San Francisco, 1982, the AIDS epidemic starting. There were gay priests. There was like a lot of gay congregants. I was 14. There was like kind of, but like, you knew that these men, like, there'd be like a laying on of hands that I had never seen before, and like this healing kind of laying on of hands, and it was just like these I just remember the gay men. I'm sure there were lesbians there too, but the gay men that were being killed by this epidemic. There were just a lot in the congregation. I just felt like, wow. I look back and like, where else were they accepted? In churches around. And I think that's Episcopalianism. I don't know. I know that seems very like a wide brush, but like, to me, that's what it means to me.
That's what I feel like too. My friend Jim McKnight was there when you were there too.
Oh my gosh. My mom was on the search. No, my dad was on the search committee for Jim.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is that they have a trans priest now.
Yeah, really? That's so amazing. Doesn't surprise me.
This Cameron is like one of my favorite priests of all time. I've known Cameron since he was about like 20 or something.
You're not a talent. That's so beautiful. That doesn't surprise me in the least. Like, St. Aidan is just so. It was just, I just thought that was exactly right. This is what church is supposed to be. Yeah. And so when I say I'm so glad I grew up Episcopalian, like, if I was going to grow up in any sort of faith, I'm so of the Christian faith, I'm thrilled about it. I just felt really lucky. And I think it really helped my experience when I, have like on my like journey of like whatever of my queerness and stuff. And like a lot of that was instilled in church to my family. Right. And in me. So that's how it affected me.
Oh, I love it. That makes me so happy. Got the right answer. So
thank God. Oh gosh, I did one.
So one is, can you talk a little bit about the abstract turn that season 3 took?
Well, we didn't have a season 3, so I think you mean season 2.
Yeah.
The abstract, I think if that's what the person means.
Our caller,
that's what the caller means. I would, so, and again, I'm out of practice about talking about the show. A lot of it was, oh gosh, I'm not going to do a good job in this at all. I think season 2 was a lot, even before the COVID, before George Floyd got murdered, before the uprisings and stuff, and the protests. We were still on this track of like getting young Abby in this second season. And honestly, a lot of that was for season 1, right? So like the pilot that Tim and I created that went to Sundance, what actually went on as our first episode. Like the only thing that changed it, we had to change the music because we didn't get the licensing, and they fixed the color. But like what we shot for 30 grand is what you see. Amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, it's just really like it's just our series is so bonkers. It's such a like, what happened? But anyway, so we shot 7 episodes in 7 weeks, and I'm in every episode. I'm in every scene. Right. So, and some like, it was just a lot. And so when we got season 2, thank the Lord, I was so thankful for, we had 10 episodes and it was going to be like 10 weeks and I'm in every scene. It was just, it's like a lot. And like, I'm writing it, I'm in it. It's about my life, which takes a lot. Like, I think that was something that not everybody understood, like either on set or like in the world, that like, there's a lot more than just showing up to work. It was like, I'm dissecting like my brain, which was a lot. Also, I'm very lucky. Okay. I never want to be whiny. So honestly, we were like, okay, how are we we still like, Abby is still the center of the show, but we're going to show Abby at different ages. And that's how it started. That's why they're young Abbies in season 2. And then when and even before the pandemic, we're really going to show that, like, what's the origin story, if that's the right way, of Abby's mental health, like, and her struggles, like her first panic attack, her OCD, stuff like that. We're going to show that anyways. And since we had, I don't know. And then when the, like, we didn't, this is not answering your question, caller/writer. So apologies. I think Lily Wachowski, who is my partner on this, is like, we did not want to make a show about COVID. We wanted to make a show about what was going on in the world, and COVID is definitely a huge part of it. And it certainly says a lot about how COVID affects people, is a lot about injustices, right? And poverty and access to think, I'm going off topic, but anyways, I don't know. And so I think I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know.
I'll sum it up. In many ways, you're affected by all these different things, of right. just like the amount of you that was going to be put in, you personally, right. And all, because that was one of the things I thought you were going to make a joke of when I read all the different roles. I mean, it's just like, there's a billion different titles that you have.
Right.
So you needed to have other people kind of be part of like making it. And then
right.
the COVID things going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think because the world was so messed up, and it was so like, we started shooting pre-vaccine, and that, there was a videoed murder of a Black man by police, that like, what was going to happen with that, and like all the things were coming to the forefront, and so like, I just think we were like, what's the world? I don't know. So I'm out of practice.
We gotta go like through the speed round.
I'm so sorry. Apologies.
What Abby thinks of Hannah Gadsby's work.
Hannah Gadsby is amazing. Okay, now I got it. She is so amazing. I'm overwhelmed by her and her talent. I have to say, like, when Nanette came out on Netflix, my friend, I got so many calls. Some of my friends had seen her live in LA, and like, oh, it's coming out. And I got all these calls and texts, and they were from dear friends of mine saying, Abby, you got to watch Hannah Gadsby, Nanette. And all of them were like, watch when you're in a good place, because it's really going to affect you a lot. I think she is brilliant. And I want to say, like, what I'm struck by, she does her Nanette is just, and she does this thing about, she will never do self-deprecating humor again. And I got to say, I strive for that. I don't know if I'll ever get there. Yeah. I find amazing strength in her. I don't even, I don't.
When you take out all humor that's like teasing other people, and then you take all self-deprecating humor out, you're right. I mean, like, it takes a lot of creativity to work in that.
Right. And I think it's more about my self-worth. Like, I think the way that I've survived is like, I just, and you grew up as a fat kid, right? Whose brain isn't always great. I just went into every situation like that I didn't want to get bullied or made fun of.
Yeah.
So like I spend so much time putting myself down, and it ain't great, but so I really love her. Anyways, that wasn't really speedy, but that was pretty speedy for
I
me.
thought that was really good. So another question that's coming. One is there any hope of Work in Progress being picked up by another network? It is so brilliant, is what our audience member said.
Well, I have to say, I appreciate that so much. And, Lily and I were really hoping for that. But once, we found out actually that we got canceled the Monday of Thanksgiving, and they didn't announce it until like mid-January. Cause I was like, when are you going to announce it? It's like killing me. Like, I was like, anybody I saw, I'd have to tell them. And then I'm dealing with my own grief, And so when it was finally announced, like there was no interest. And I think that it had been so long. And I just think that I wasn't going to go and campaign again, but there was nobody came to us and wanted it. So no.
Yeah. So here's a question. What is one thing you want to share with queer youth who may watch Work in Progress?
Okay. I'm going to cry on this. As somebody who has been so lucky, that wherever you are, and if you are able to watch it, just know, like, and if you feel isolated, like, you are worth it, and you are wonderful, and you are loved. And maybe you don't feel that way now, but there are people around, and then maybe you're gonna have to go search them to find them, but they're around that will love you for who you are and who you love and how you identify. And I don't know, I just feel apologies for not apologies for that. I just feel like this goes back to like how, I feel like one of the best things one of the luckiest things in the world, like I was having panic attacks, right? And my family was able to get me help, and they didn't care about the stigma. There was no stigma about mental health. I went to therapy for the first time in 8th grade, which was like 1981. And I had that access. They had the means, they had the openness about it. I don't know. I've just been so lucky. So wherever you are, there are people that love you, and you're good, and you're brilliant, and you're strong, and you're stronger than you know. That's one thing. You are stronger than you know. And oof.
I know, Abby, I love you so much. You're like, you're such a blessing. And this is such an important ministry to be out there in the world, just to reminding people just that they're holy. Do you know what I mean? It's like the holy thing that we have access to. The only holy thing is each other,
Yeah.
And what a blessing that you remind people that, in your own language, but my language is that they're children of God. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're made in the image of God. They're holy,
right.
sanctified. And, but that's what you do.
Well, that's really kind. I think that's really kind of you. And I think that also, like, I think it's really easy for me, like, if I'm in one of my states that I don't leave the house and I just see the news and stuff, and it's like, no, people suck. Like, it's so easy to go there. And then the second you go outside and you meet somebody who isn't the same as you, and they're lovely, and like, right. It's like, sometimes I have to be reminded of that, because you get so isolated. And I think, imagine me on watching social media, my Lord. But anyways, there are people out there that, and yeah, they're not going to be exactly like you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Oof, we've got a lot to learn.
A lot to learn, but we're coming out of such a difficult time, so it takes the burdens that we're feeling and just magnifies them.
I mean, yeah,
acutely. And I'm just in a way, I guess we're all kind of survivors of COVID so far, and
yeah, like thank goodness. And I think, and it's just, and finding that grace, and not only for others, but for yourself. I think that's like, that's hard, right? Like, to find that grace and forgiveness for yourself. And I think that's something that I think we all probably need to work on,
So true. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. But I often ask people this, at the very end, but I wonder what signs of hope are you seeing these days? I mean, and a lot of people are sending like, when can we see Abby in person or when can we see her again? So there's a lot of people asking that. So maybe you can start.
For real?
So you can.
Oh, there's nothing planned. I don't have any jobs, okay. So like, but
people want to know, like, can we see her at the at the theater in Oakland? That's what they want. So that's the first thing.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah.
No, come out to.
But there's nothing planned. There's nothing planned.
Nothing planned, but that's okay. And then that second question is just like, what signs of hope are you seeing?
I'll say that I have I have some friend. I have like a friend of mine, my friend Colleen, and we're writing partners now. We're working on something, and they have a genderqueer child who is 6, and I am hopeful by the way that she and her husband are raising their beautiful child, and how this child goes to kindergarten and is, I don't know, and they're in LA. I just think that there's some place, like seeing like some queer youth and that are surrounded in communities of love and acceptance. And again, it doesn't happen when they're at the playground or they go to the grocery store. That's not there. But I just think that to me, like that, wait, in school, like, and the families and they're learning, I don't know. That gives me immense hope. And even they're like, and it's treacherous still, like for her and her family, right? Because there's so much danger out there, but the hope that like this beautiful, smart, brilliant, hilarious child it's growing up in a family that is fully loving and
nurturing and caring for that person.
Just
bring that person to fullness of their who they can.
It's unbelievable. Like to me, it's unbelievable and so hopeful. So I don't know. Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. Well, our next forum is Wednesday, May 4th, when my guest will be David Kaiman Kim, whom Cornel West calls the leading philosopher of religion and culture of his generation. And we'll be talking about cynicism, racism, and violence, and the radical love it takes to see the humanity in others and to reach across our divides. We rely on your support for the forum. Gifts of any size make a difference. You can give on gracecathedral.org or by texting THINK, THINK, to 76278. 76278. Abby, I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much for giving us the hope and for, like I said, like nurturing and lifting us up through your television ministry. And we wish you all the best in your projects.
That's so kind. It's so lovely to finally meet you, Malcolm. Take care. Thank you so much, everybody. I much appreciated.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, good night.